Here we go. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Encores Club, where each month a panel of experienced music fans dive into some new music. I'm your host, Jason. You can catch me every week hosting Alt Rewind on Strange Ways TV. It's a weekly news broadcast. We hit all the best music news that came out during the week. You can also follow me online DJing, as well as in Las Vegas as DJ Velvet Rebel. This week, we have some fantastic guests I want to introduce you to. First up, our co-host each week is the co-founder of Daily Durani, the oldest daily fan blog of Duran Duran. Everyone say hello to Rhonda.
Hi, everyone.
So apart from Duran Duran, Rhonda, who have you seen the most in concert?
Oh, I see. You did not tell me you were going to ask this.
Exactly.
Let's see. I've seen Tears for Fears a lot. I've seen the English Beat a lot.
They do seem to play all over the West Coast quite a bit.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, they've actually played my restaurant, I think, 4 times over the years here in Vegas. So
yeah,
by default, I've seen them a lot. So
it's true.
Excellent. Our special guest this week was recently featured in Classic Pop Magazine, absolutely one of the best music magazines out there for fans of 80s music. Either you grew up with it or you appreciate it. It's absolutely fantastic. Meet David O, creator and host of the D-Side podcast. David, what was the last concert you saw before the lockdown started?
Gosh, I think I went to see 3 bands: Chris Farron, Retirement Party, and I can't remember the third one. I was supposed to go see Sinead O'Connor like a week before or the week after the lockdown, and that's my saddest moment of the lockdown right now. I miss Sinead O'Connor.
I have tickets for Squeeze a week from tomorrow, and the casino in Vegas says it's still happening, but
hey, show up.
The casinos are closed, so I don't know how that's going to work. Each week on the Encores Club, our ever-changing panel of guests will discuss albums usually released in the last few weeks, maybe in the last month or two. Everyone on the show has been listening to music a long time. Doesn't mean we're old, which has been around a bit. We bring an interesting range of perspectives to the show that may not happen inside the mainstream media these days. We remember going to record stores, buying cassettes, CDs, things like that. We know we aren't alone, so join us each week. Maybe find some new albums that you're excited to hear. First up this week is Manchester's Ist and their debut album, Architecture. The band has been around since 2014, but have taken their time on a full album. They've built a strong reputation with some ferocious live shows and some blindingly good EPs. As a fan of late 70s post-punk, as well as contemporary bands like Foals and Idols, this album instantly hit me in a good place. I felt super comfortable listening to it. It's like, this is exactly what I love about music. There's hints of The Cure in some of the guitar tones, but it's really all about the bass lines for me. They really carry the sledgehammer when it comes to the melody, and that drew me in. Adam Houghton's voice, it gives me chills. He reminds me of Nick Cave. So I've been really digging into this album a lot this week, and there's a lot I love about it. Rhonda, what was your impression?
I have to admit that the first song, Wolves, on the album, it was, I liked it immediately because it was dark. It hit places that today's music doesn't seem to hit for me. And then after the Wolves was over, I kind of took a deep breath and went in, listening to You're Mine, and that song knocked it out of the park. Everything that I love about music shows up in here. You've got the dark tinge of the lead singer's voice. There's a brightness in the music that really plays well tension-wise between the two. It reminds me a lot of Bauhaus in some ways. Also, I got a lot of Peter Murphy. I really liked it. Musically, I think they sound a lot like The Cure. But I really liked it. I enjoyed it, and I was surprised I hadn't heard it before, to be honest.
I kept listening to a few of the songs, You're Mine for sure, and Black, and I kept thinking to myself, and I know you're a big fan of the Killers, I kept thinking, after Hot Fuzz, this is the Killers I wanted the Killers to be. and they never really evolved in that direction. But I was like, this is what the Killers were supposed to be for me, and they never became that. And
Right.
I also think the same about Interpol. I love Interpol's first album, and I was so ready for that band to be a big part of my life. And every single album since then, I kind of lost it. So this kind of excited me in that regard, and it reminded me of bands I thought were going to be important in my life, and maybe didn't stick around as long as I hoped. So it was like, yes, finally something else to jump in on. David, what did you think?
Okay, so if the sound of this band scratches an itch for you, it's awesome. But I just do not have that itch. Here's how and I gave it a full listen or so before I wrote this down. But to me, it sounds like the singer from Nitzer Ebb in a Joy Division cover band, produced by Alan Wilder, with Peter Hook on bass, and an album cover by Peter Seville. Now, the thing is, the music is
all good things.
It is. The music is. If I was reviewing this like for an Entity, Pitchfork, or something, I would probably give it pretty high marks because it's really well done. I don't like the baritone thing. I just don't. And it's sacrilege, but I just don't like Joy Division for that reason.
Interesting.
And I knew it was going to be a tough listen. Actually, Wolves was one of my favorites. I've seen people have a hard time with that intro song or that first song because it's almost more like an intro than a whole song.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It just had too many things. I'm like, this sounds like this. This sounds like this. This sounds like this. And that's fine to some degree, but I'm like, I like the last three songs the best.
Okay. Yeah.
The beginning, okay. The middle had a big dip for me, but the last three, I felt like they were making their own music and weren't just hitting that Joy Division button too hard.
And that's interesting because I think on the front half of the album, a lot of those songs are actually either re-recordings or they might be the original, but I think they're re-recordings of stuff that was on earlier EPs. So that might have caught them at a much earlier point in their life. And I've noticed a few bands do that. I really enjoy a band called Bang Bang Romeo out of London. But when they released their full album, the first half of the album was a compilation of all their EPs previously. And then you can hear the growth of the band later in the album. So that's really interesting that you hear that.
Well, I wondered, would it be different if it just had a different singer, since I just inherently don't like that voice quite as much? And it might be. Like, I saw Peter Hook live playing all of Substance by Joy Division.
Yes.
And I was like, this is awesome. Because it was a different voice singing that music. But I really liked the last three songs. What I wrote down, Knight's Arm and Under Your Skin were my two favorites.
I actually have on my notes for Knight's Arm, quote, the band I always wanted to be in. Every band I've ever played in, we've definitely pulled on that dark wave Joy Division aesthetic, maybe ripping off Interpol. One review actually called us as pretentious as Interpol at the time, which I took as a compliment, put that on my gravestone. But yeah, I agree. Knight's Arm is the one where I was like, this is the band I wish I was in. Just something about that one really connected with me too.
In the middle, it gets really sort of Depeche Mode-y with Discipline. That one was rough for me. I'm like, it just sounds like trying to do that S&M thing a little bit too much.
Yeah, I can see that. I can hear that. It is interesting that you say that, because after you listen to the whole album, in its entirety, and I gave it probably, 4 solid listens. I felt there was a definite curve to the album. There's an ebb and flow there. The beginning for me was good. I liked it. I actually liked it up until about halfway through. For me, the final 3 songs were the worst on the album.
Really?
Yeah, I thought they were boring. By the time it got to that point, I was like, okay, I've heard you do the dark and gloomy thing, and I want to hear something a little more upbeat, just a little bit. But I definitely got tinges of the Killers. What you said about Hot Fuss is it's just right on. Exactly.
Well, when I heard You're Mine, I immediately wrote down The Bravery. To me, it sounded more like, which of course they were linked together immensely, but I definitely heard The Bravery first album with that song You're Mine. I want to say one thing real quick. I do like dark music. It's not that I'm like, I don't like, dark, depressing music, but usually I like it with a bit of hope, like Depeche Mode, dark, but always has a little bit of hope. Or I like my happy music with a bit of despair, like ABBA. super happy, but they have some really dark, sad songs. And I just felt like this was just this. It didn't have anything else to make me go, wait, let me hear that. You know what I mean? I was looking for a, am I missing something moment? Did you guys have, did you connect with the lyrics at all?
Some of them I did. The one that I loved, and I forgot what song it is, but I think it's the second or third song. Some of the lyrics in that one, I was just like, yes, the arrogance over everything else. But there's, I don't see a lot of hope in the lyrics. I think they are dark, but
Yeah,
I
they're dark.
also, I crave that right now with what's going
Yeah.
on in the world. Everything that's happening around us, this album felt like the right time for me. But everything you just said, David, explains maybe you're not strongly passionate about Joy Division either.
Right.
Very much the
Which,
same
like
thing.
I said, if I was officially reviewing this, higher marks for my personal taste. Just, I
Yeah,
knew,
that's fair though.
you know, I
I think
knew right
that's
away this
fair.
was going to be a tough listen. As soon as I heard him talking part, I'm like, oh, cool. It went Wolves, but then when he started singing, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be so hard.
All right, so that is Ist Architecture. A little later in the show, we'll be back and we're going to be giving it candles because you may have heard of a film called 16 Candles. For us, 16 Candles is the ultimate compliment. If you get a full 16 Candles, one of the greatest albums ever. So we'll see what each of us think of Ist Architecture. We're going to shift gears now. Next up on the Encores Club, our second album today is Superstar from Caroline Rose. David, tell us a little about that.
So instead of telling you about the album, I want to tell you how I came to it. A record store here in Atlanta, of course, they're closed right now. They got an online store. I just wanted to support him, and I was scrolling through. I was drawn to the cover, listened to literally like 5 seconds of a couple songs, and bought it right away. So I had absolutely zero impression of the album, which I think is why I liked it a lot, because I had literally no idea of what it was going to be other than a few seconds. I know now that she has 4 albums. The first 2 are vastly different from the second 2. This album is basically it's a concept album. I just want to read a real quick quote from her. Caroline describes the album Superstar as a cinematic pop album that tells a story of someone who leaves behind everything they know and love in search of something bigger and more glamorous. It's a story about losing yourself, but also finding the brazen self-confidence to follow a dream. And like I said, I had no idea what it was going to be like. And I was pleasantly surprised it falls into the realm of MNDR and Dragonette for me. Really smart, pure pop, but pop that never seems to catch on because it's not sexualized very much. And as I listened to it more, I got into the humor of it. The lyrics are hilarious, and it really, really does tell a pretty literal story, which I find interesting. That makes me want to go back to it more and more. So, Jason, what were your thoughts?
Well, this has been on my radar for a while, and I don't know why I didn't listen to it. I'm in a vinyl club called Vinyl Me Please. They made a big deal about her last album, Loner, which was, I thought, a really good record. I didn't necessarily buy it, but I streamed it enough, enjoyed it. And then this one is actually one of their monthly picks. I swapped out of it, so I don't actually have it on vinyl. They did it on a beautiful pink bubblegum thing. So everyone's talking about it. It's getting a lot of attention. So I was excited when you mentioned it because I was like, this is one I'm supposed to listen to. I just haven't gotten around to it. So obviously the fact that she plays everything and that it is a journey, those are things that immediately draw me into it. For me, I'm a very alt country fan. So the fact that she's gone so hardcore pop, I was a little hesitant about it first. I'm still a little bitter about Tegan and Sarah going so mainstream with their pop. I get a little frustrated sometimes, but she pulls it off extremely well in terms of contemporaries doing pop in that manner. I think St. Vincent is the one that came to mind for me. But I also, throughout the album, I heard a huge influence from Prince. There's one song, Do You Think Will Last Forever, where it sounds like something Prince would have given Vanity Six. It just, for me, I was like, oh, it's a Vanity Six song. So right out of the gate, I was like, okay, I like it. the story itself, I thought, really hinged on a moment in the middle of the album. Feelings are a thing of the past. Feel the Way I Want, which I know is a big single for it. Those two songs kind of are the crux of this journey, music industry, the fame. It doesn't allow for feelings. She comes to that realization, and then she moves on into some other types of music throughout the second half of the album. I thought the second half of the album is really what pulled me in the most on it. But yeah, overall, I was a little surprised because I went in with one expectation, kind of discovered something different, and then kind of went back and forth on it. Don't know if I absolutely love the album, but there's a few songs on there I definitely would put on like a regular go-to playlist. Rhonda?
Um, I have to admit, it's a little poppy for me. I tend to not gravitate towards that end of the scale. It's okay if there's some pop on a record. I don't mind that, but I usually am not big into like the top 40 or anything that even comes remotely close to it. I have to admit, it was always a struggle for me, even when I was younger, and even with Duran Duran. So
you have a Duran Duran blog.
Yeah. So that's just a thing. But that said, there was plenty that I liked on this album. I have to admit, I did zero research here. I just listened. I had no idea that it was a concept album. I didn't know. I knew that she had other records, and I actually gave a couple of songs like a really quick, like, what did she sound like before? I have to admit, I liked what she did before. That said, I can see why this would appeal to a much younger and much different crowd. And I respect that. I do. Every artist has to grow, and they have to grow in the way that they want. There was a couple of songs that I did like a lot. I liked Got to Go My Own Way. I thought it was catchy. It was a really, it's a catchy tune, and there's nothing wrong with that. Do You Think We'll Last Forever actually is my favorite on the album, and I now know why it was my favorite on the album. Thanks, Jason. It makes more, I kept listening to it going, why do I know this song? I know it, and that's why. It's because I think at its core, it's, a Prince song that was written for Vanity 6 without a doubt. No question. I also liked Someone New. Pipe Dreams reminded me of Fiona Apple, which is
my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected Fiona Apple out of her, to be honest, but I heard it. And so I was really impressed. I have to say, I don't know that it's going to be a favorite of mine, but it definitely was better than I expected.
Well, and one thing you said, you don't like pop, which,
not a lot.
Nothing wrong with that. One thing that's interesting is that on the cover, she's literally plastic.
Oh yeah.
Which on one end, it's what drew me into it. I was like, look at that cover. Then I'm like, oh wait, she's playing she's telling a story about how I'm not even real. She went in, the whole story thing. And the beginning of the album is more R&B. And I wondered if that might turn either one of you guys off a little bit more. I don't know. I like Janelle Monáe is one of my all-time favorites. I wondered if I was more R&B ready, or if that beginning of the album, because like you both said, about halfway through the album changes, and it from like Freak Like Me forward, to me they're all like almost A+ songs. Mm-hmm. Whereas the beginning was more like here's this, and then it changes. So did the beginning of the album scare you because it was a little bit more almost R&B hip hoppy?
Well, I mean, the last record I had on last night was Isley Brothers, so the R&B and the funk is definitely in my wheelhouse. I think as far as the story goes, coming at this from an older perspective, the whole journey, this, coming to terms with the fact that the whole industry is built on artifice, it's plastic, it's fake. At this age, I figured that out about the pop industry. So it's a story that I feel like I've heard before, told by other artists over time. So for me, as an older listener, that would probably be my biggest hang up on the record. But I love that you mentioned Pipe Dreams, Rhonda. For me, that is far and away my favorite song, because it just seems a little almost like there's not as much hope. And, you start to realize no matter what this journey is going to be, it doesn't necessarily come with a huge happy ending. For me, it reminded me of Courtney Barnett's Depreston, one of my favorite songs by her. Also a song that doesn't sound like the rest of Courtney Barnett's music necessarily, but it's reaching that point in life where you just kind of like, all right, let's just settle down and buy a house together and in a town called Depreston, because it's depressing. And I don't know, something about Pipe Dreams really connected with me. I really like that one. I thought it ended perfectly with I Took a Ride.
I Took a Ride is my favorite. It makes me literally, it's the end of the album, but it makes me want to go, what happens next?
Yeah,
Like,
it was a
even if
great
you
closer.
don't know the story, to me, already that's her new sound happening. It leads you on to her, makes me want to hear more, makes me want to start the album over, but makes me want to hear more of her too.
If anything, I almost wish it wasn't a concept album. I'd love to hear more songs like Pipe Dreams, I Took a Ride, a collection of songs instead of forcing it into a linear concept, because for me, that part of the album doesn't work as well as some of the individual songs, if that
Play
makes
it
sense.
on shuffle. There you
Yeah,
go.
definitely. You
I
can't do
don't
that
know.
on vinyl.
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
thought it was interesting because for me, 2 out of the 3 songs that I liked the best on the album were the first half. Um, and so I don't know that the R&B situation really bothered me as much as just I felt that the album in many parts is overproduced. It's a little too effect heavy,
Yes.
and
The
you know,
panning a few times on the vocal panning, I was like, okay, that's Garage Band 101 for
yeah,
two.
there's a lot of that I think throughout the record, honestly.
And then you could overthink it and go, well, wait, is she making a commentary on popular music?
She might
You know
be
what I mean? And
Produced it herself,
I'm not
so
saying that.
it's her final decision. But I do think that maybe a producer would help filter some of that out. I think some artists need a producer. Going back to
I
your
agree.
blog, Duran Duran does their best work when they have a producer who
A
can
good one.
kind of reel them in. And I would like to have seen this produced, but even if St. Vincent had come in and done
Yeah.
something, that might have taken it over the top for me.
But I am very excited for what's next because I think the next album will have a pretty good producer if this goes where it seems to be
Oh,
going. And the way that back half was, I'm like, from Freak Like Me forward, I'm like, this is nearly perfect for me. And I wanted like that to be the beginning and then it to keep going a little bit.
I think it's interesting. I wonder if I would have listened to the album differently if I would have known it was a concept album, because I really didn't know until you said anything. And I kind of like that. I just went into it blindly. And I don't have the album or anything. I'm listening to it off of Spotify. You and I talked about this, David, where I said, I like having something in front of me. I like doing a little research, and I purposefully didn't this time. I wonder if I would have heard it differently, because I'm usually pretty good about being able to draw some of the, I like the depth out of it. Even with pop, I can do that, if it's there. But I didn't even hear it in
Well, and
here.
that's part of the thing is I thought it would be pure pop, almost like LaRue, just very an 80. I want to sound 80s. And to me, it wasn't like that at all.
No, it wasn't that, because you would have gotten a different review from me or a different suggestion.
But yeah, and therefore now you can listen to it again and read along with the lyrics. And there actually were a couple songs that I specifically was like, oh, Rhonda will like these lyrics.
Yeah, it's funny. I struggle without having the lyrics in front of me.
I did too.
So I think that
I was not following some of the songs.
What song did you say? You said, which one did you like the best? Feel the Way I Want, Rhonda?
Me?
Yeah. What song did you say?
My favorite on the album was Do You Think We'll Last Forever?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I think Feel the Way I Want was the one I was like, I thought of you. I was like, she'll love these lyrics.
Yeah, and I have written down there that song dragged for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it really does have everything to do with the full experience, knowing the background, reading the lyrics, all that. I do that with other bands. And so I tried to do it as more of like a holistic, just like come into it, or I should say organic experience. I came into it without knowing a thing. And I don't know if I'm going to do that next time, because I like having a little of the backstory.
Yeah, but now it's almost like when you listen to it again, it'll be a new first time. You know what I mean?
Sorry, you guys. My phone and computer all hooked up. Sorry.
And I think the first time I heard Feel the Way I Want, I actually pulled up the video because it was a single. And I watched the video and I thought it was a good song, but it didn't really work for me. I wasn't blown away by it, but hearing it within the album where it comes after feelings are a thing of the past, almost like, this whole industry and fame and you're not allowed to have feelings. And then it's kind of like, but wait, I'll feel the way I want. And it kind of sets sail on that second half of the album where I thought things really picked up. So I think within the context of the album worked better for me, whereas just as a standalone single, I didn't really get it at first.
Listening to the album, I was like, I didn't even know what a single was or anything. I was like, that's the first single. I could tell right away, or
Yeah.
not first, but a single. And I wanted to say one other thing real quick. With her on the cover looking completely plastic, I opened up my vinyl and I didn't realize I had bought some like indie shop special version. It came with a signed poster inside.
Oh.
So I saw this plastic blonde girl in neon superstar. Inside, you unfold it, she's outside of like a bowling alley, wearing a Western shirt and cowboy boots with unshaved legs and like pigtails and stuff. I was like, this is going to be something different. So that sort of made me, there's a huge juxtaposition in the packaging between what she is on the cover and what I think she really is. And that made me go, hold on, pay attention.
Oh, that's very different. Yeah, see, that changes everything. But let's be honest. Most people who buy this, they're going to get it on Spotify, or they're not even going to buy it. They're going to stream it. So they're going to miss half. They're going to be like me.
Right.
And will you miss half of the messaging involved then?
And I mean, I always say I'd rather have an artist aim high and miss a little bit than just do something safe, you know?
Oh,
so
yeah,
I say,
I agree.
She didn't play all the instruments, but she did it all herself and she aimed high. And I think when you know her earlier stuff, it makes it even crazier, this part she's playing, because she was straight up, I don't even know if she was alt country. She was Bob Dylan in her early stuff. You know?
She was country.
She was closer to like Brandy Carlisle than anything else.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that is our 2 albums on this week's Encores Club. At the end of every show, we're going to be doing a curtain call where we kind of give our short final verdict in the spirit of John Hughes. That will include Candles, 16 Candles being the absolute greatest album you've ever heard. One candle being perhaps Paper Gods by Duran Duran if you're me. 2 very unhappy faces just popped up on my screen.
Oh, man.
The first up is Architecture. Rhonda, how many candles?
Oh my gosh. On that one, this is hard. I think I'm going to go for 13.
13. Okay. Would you buy it, stream it, or just leave it?
No, that I would buy.
Okay.
I'd buy it.
And David?
I'd give that one 4 candles, my personal opinion, but like 12 if I was reviewing it for the general public, because it's good. It's just not for me.
Excellent.
And I would leave it.
Leave it?
Probably won't go back to it though.
Well, when it comes
I wouldn't change the channel if it was on though.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I've already bought it. It is in the mail coming from England. I bought one of their special edition pressings. With the COVID crisis, I don't know when that'll arrive, but for me, it is a solid 14 candles. This will definitely be on my best of 2020 list. This band, they are derivative of a lot of the bands I like, but you know what? I'm not going to blame them for that. I am just thrilled that another band came out of Manchester doing the dark stuff that I love. Our second album today was Caroline Rose Superstar. We had a very good discussion about that, and I actually think this discussion maybe added a candle or 2 for mine rating. I'm going to give it a 9 candle rating, and it is definitely a stream it for me. But I think I need the lyrics, so I'll probably be ordering it on vinyl regardless.
Yeah, which are in the vinyl, by the way. And I literally just found, I was looking up the lyrics online and I opened up my vinyl. I was like, oh, they've been in here the whole time.
Sometimes you just need to buy it. So David, how many candles for you?
14.
14.
And I already bought it, so.
And Rhonda?
I'm going to have to go with 7, and I probably leave it.
And leave it. Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in. This was our first episode of the Encores Club. Rhonda will be here every week. We'll be having some amazing different guests. Huge thank you to David O. He took some time away from his incredible podcast, The D Side, being interviewed by Classic Pop, made a little time for us, and we appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Stay safe. Wash your hands. See you soon.